Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors, and if you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled, "Neighbor broke into my backyard at night, swam in my pool and pooped in my water." The fact that I even had to write the sentence that is the title of the story is painful. To get right into the story, I have a pool in my backyard that is for my personal use. For a while I had my suspicions that somebody had been messing around back there when I was not home. The pool cover would seem to have been taken off and on, the ground would have wet footprints that did not belong to me, and even some of the furniture seemed to have been moved. This was not enough for someone like me to go full spy and install cameras or do a stakeout. I just thought maybe I was seeing things wrong, or maybe the footprints were mine and I forgot. I thought that I would just do something passive and that maybe if someone was doing it they would get the idea. So I put up a no trespassing sign and called it a day. That did not seem to do the trick and only led to me learning I could not just ignore this problem and hope that it would go away on its own. I went to go swim on a warm Saturday after a long week at work. I take off the pool cover to find a literal piece of poop floating around in the pool. It was pretty easy to tell that it was from a human being, and I know that it happened overnight. I was completely disgusted and could not even imagine who would do something like this. In hindsight, I could have called the police at that point to file a report, but I had no idea who had done this. So I went through the process of having to carefully and with a very long pole remove the waste and drain the entire pool. Let's just say I was in a really bad mood after having to do all this on one of the hottest days. I decided to buy a lock for my gate as well as a small camera that I had placed to face the pool. I had to find out what kind of horrible human being did this and see if I could catch them. It did not take long for me to see who had been doing this the entire time. It was my neighbor. She had broken the lock on my gate to gain access to the backyard, and then on camera I could see her swimming around in my pool as she pleased, completely naked. That is the only thing that might have been more gross than the poop she left in the other day. Then when she was done, I could see her come out of the pool and squat by the edge. She peed and let another poop drop right into the water. I could only guess that she had been swimming at night for a while, and my action against it, like the sign and lock, got her angry enough to leave me those little surprises. Part of me wanted to confront her about what she did and ask why she thought it was okay to use someone's personal pool like it was her own. And by the way, ripe stars, I would hope that she does not even use her own pool for something like this. Anyway, not to mention that what she did as revenge for me not wanting a random person breaking into my yard. I was far too angry for that though, and knew that a large man yelling at a woman on her porch would not be seen as a great thing. So instead I called the police now that I had all the evidence I needed. The police saw the video and seemed as disgusted as I was at what she had done. I was able to file a report against her for trespassing, since that was the obvious law that was broken. They got to tell her that if she was ever caught trespassing again, they were going to need to arrest her. They told her to stay away from me and not to go on my property again, or I could call them and follow through on that threat. Trust me, if she ever showed up again, I would have called them in a heartbeat and watched as she was put in the police car and taken away. She seemed to get the idea though, because she never tried sneaking over to use my pool again after that. I also got another sign and replaced the lock that she had broken off the gate. There was still one more matter to take care of though. I was not going to just let her get away with pooping in my pool. There was really nothing the police could do about that because it did not actually cause damage, it just caused me some mental anguish. I knew suing her for that was not really going to get me anywhere either, so I decided that I was going to get back at her the old-fashioned way. An eye for an eye to show her how gross it really is to have to clean poop off your property. Now, the only downside to this was I could not bring myself to gather my own, or worse, go outside on her property. However, I have a dog though, and anybody that has one of those knows that their poop can be quite nasty at times and very plentiful. I had a couple of ways I could have done this, like using her lawn as my personal dumping ground for my dog's poop, but instead I decided to wait a few days and gather a decent amount that he had made all at once. If anybody else has a big dog, they will know that a big dog equals big poop. Then I put on gloves and tried not to think about what I was doing as I transferred all of it into a paper bag. Finally, I took that bag when I knew nobody was home and left it right on the neighbor's porch. I waited from my house until I heard a scream that let me know she saw and opened the bag. The smell must have killed her, because even after living with this dog for years and adjusting to it, his poop still smells bad. It was even better though, because of the weight the bag broke and the contents fell right onto the porch and even a little bit on her shoes by the look of it. It was not the revenge I had planned exactly, but it was the revenge that karma knew that I deserved. The best part is, even though she can guess it was me, she cannot really know for sure, since I'm not the only neighbor that has beef with her. I never did get a big yelling showdown with my neighbor, which was probably for the best, even long after I was still steaming about what she did, and would have liked to find out some of the answers to the questions burning in my mind. Was she dumb enough to think that the pool located in my backyard was open to the public? Did she think that she was just so entitled to my pool that she could use it without asking in the middle of the night? The biggest one being why she decided swimming in someone else's pool naked was the best way to go about it, and still she is away from my property, and in the end that is worth more than these answers that she probably would not have a good answer to anyway. And ripe stars, if you still enjoy the stories about entitled crazy neighbors, then I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and also like the video if you want to support me. Thank you so much in advance. The next one is titled Revenge on a Jerk. This story happened about 15 years ago. The cast is OP, me, female, 5'11", Bob, the friendly store manager, Chief, my boss, an entitled jerk who lost his car. I worked as a firefighter as an investigator for an independent department. For information, an investigator was the rank of LT and was based out of a large station, 2 engines, 1 newer, 110 tower ladder truck, relative later, 1 chief car and 1 utility truck. Every day the food duties changed from firefighter to firefighter, my chief's turn to cook when this happened. My friend Bob worked as a GM of a small grocery store. There was a long empty space in front of the store marked with the following sign: Emergency vehicles only. Enter the entitled jerk. He had a nice looking BMW car and always parked in the above spot every week. Bob told entitled jerk that he could not park there and said, "I can park wherever I want. I make more in a day than you make in a week." My friend calls me complaining about entitled jerk. I agree to go and watch the spot. I get into our utility truck, which had the department decals on the door and a single red light on the dash. I park in the emergency vehicles only spot. As I am walking in, I hear, "You cannot park there. It's my special spot." I turn and look at entitled jerk. "Excuse me," I ask. "I'm on official duty and can park here." I pointed to the decal on the door. Entitled jerk looks and says, "You cannot be a firefighter. You're a girl. Move your truck and leave." Now, I am proud of my job. In a department of 2000, I was 1 out of 5 women on the department. I graduated top in my class, and I have a shocked looking expression on my face. I get really pissed off. I walk into my friend's office to get more information about his problem with entitled jerk, as Bob explains the continuous parking violations, and I see a small notice on the fire suppression system, sprinklers, that said the inspection was coming up. I smile as I get an idea. Cue the revenge. I get some information, leave Bob's office and get into the truck, heading back to the station. I arrive and then head into my chief's office. I tell him of entitled jerk and what he said and does. The chief is a 6'6", 320 pound Samoan. He sees everyone as family. The chief's face gets bright red. I explained my idea and he gets very happy. He rushes out and calls a station meeting. I lay out my idea. We send out the station to do a fire drill/inspection by sending the old truck and 1 engine to the store. My friend will call the station the next time entitled jerk parks in the fire lane. Skip to 2 weeks later, Bob called the station stating that entitled jerk had just parked. As I am thanking him, I hear his fire alarm go off. I rush and change into my investigator uniform with turnout gear, tell the chief and send the trucks out. I ride in the Quint, we arrive and I see entitled jerk's car right in the emergency vehicle spot. I radio to have one engine to pull right in front of entitled jerk's car and the truck to park right beside the driver's side door. I get out and the engineer starts setting up the ladder, which means 4 very large and heavy support struts go down and one crushes the front of his hood. The alarm goes off. The lineman breaks his windows as he runs the large 5-inch draft line from the pump to the standpipes, the fire access to the sprinkler system, through his front seats. I then go in to find Bob hurriedly getting people out as the alarm is going off. Entitled jerk runs out of the store, sees his car and goes ballistic. I radio the PD dispatch and request a few officers to the store as I had a dude who was impeding a fire operation. The dispatcher says that they will send a few officers. 3 officers show up and I ask them to follow me. They do when I call out. "Hey, leave my firefighters alone!" Entitled jerk turns and sees me as he rushes up screaming that I will pay for damaging his precious baby, aka his car. I stop him and tell him that if he didn't leave that he would be arrested. He gets in my face and says, "You did this, I will have your job for this." He then turns, pushing me back. The officers and I rush and tackle entitled jerk to the ground. After they cuff him, I calmly inform EB that he was under arrest for assault and interference with a fire investigation and that his car would be towed for parking in a fire lane. I later found out that it was crushed. Entitled jerk got 12 months probation for pushing me and interfering with a fire operation. He also got a fine of $500 for parking, the cost of the tow, and he lost his nice BMW. Moral of the story: don't park where you shouldn't or bad things will happen. The next one is titled Freebies for Everyone. I have posted a story here in the past, but it is not necessary to read it prior to this. While railroad ties and vandals are not involved like the previous story, it does include the evil Empire EE Cable Corporation, margaritas and a padlock. Whether it is pro-revenge or petty revenge, you let me know. Pre-children PC, my wife and I purchased our first house. We were very excited to be homeowners. We were particularly proud to show off all our gardening and yard skills we have developed over the years of childhood chores. Don't tell mom, but who knew that seemingly punishment of yard work would actually translate to adulthood? We are off to a great start with a meticulous yard, spending way too much time and money. On my small suburban lot is the utility box for one of the 2 cable choices in the neighborhood. Along the EE Cable Corporation, you know, the one who Forbes always lists as one of the worst companies in the country. I come home from work one day and notice the utility box is open and the cables are filleted all over. I did not think too much of it at the time and made a mental note assuming they are on a break. The next day I come home from work and the utility box is still a mess. I called the evil Empire Cable Company to kindly let them know that they left a mess in my yard after a repair. They told me nicely that they will be out in the neighborhood the following day to finish the work. Many weeks come and go without them fixing their mess. It was coming up on our first pool party and we wanted the house to be perfect. I called the EE Cable Corporation again, not to bore you with the details of the conversation, but ended with a rude ending that they will be out there eventually. Now I am seeing why nobody likes this evil Empire Cable Company. At our first PC pool party, maybe after a margarita or 4, we start aimlessly discussing the evil Empire Cable Corporation. Now, we are a bunch of engineers and a truck driver. Important later, drinking margaritas, the discussion turned from complaining to scheming. While poking around the utility box and the box on the side of my house, we noticed that this EE Cable Corporation does not use multiple line blocks on the cable. They merely hook up the cable from the house to the utility box, easy peasy, nice and easy. I am guessing the lack of security is a genuine artifact of Midwest nice. Why protect something that nobody steals? We also noticed that there is only one house of the 8 that is serviced with cable. So we proceed to hook up free cable to the 7 remaining houses. We neatly stuff all the wires and close the utility box. As I mentioned, the only non-engineer in the group was a truck driver. An earlier pointless discussion was about different padlocks and why truck drivers use a specific round kind. Basically so that it is impossible to break with small bolt cutters. He grabs a large round padlock out of his truck and we try to place it on the utility box. It won't fit, hole is too small, so a few seconds of drilling, we now placed our own padlock on the EE cable corpse. Utility box along with 7 houses with free cable, protected by an industrial padlock designed to prevent trucker theft. After meeting the other neighbors and making sure they are trustworthy, I let them know about our party. Each one smiled and began enjoying free cable. A number of months later, enjoying free cable, the EE Cable Corporation is in the backyard staring at our handiwork. They bend over regularly, really studying the padlock. I can only imagine their discussion on what they are seeing. They bring out the bolt cutters from the truck. I assume they carried them if they lost a key or padlock is rusted. Now looking at the bolt cutters, I can tell this will be a futile exercise. After only about 3 minutes, they both shrug their shoulders, get back in their truck and leave. That was the last time we ever saw the EE Cable Company. Since all but one of us was enjoying free cable, there was no reason for them to be out there. Our gig was up when the one who did pay for cable, who we never really met, moved. The next technician was very dedicated. After 3 trips each with a large bolt cutter, resulting in using one more than 4 feet long, put everything back to the way it was before. And thus concludes the story of 7 houses enjoying free cable for more than 4 years because the laziness of a single technician and a rude customer service rep. The next one is titled Unregistered Vehicles Must Be Covered. This happened years ago when I lived with my parents, but it's something I remember whenever malicious compliance comes up. My first car was an '88 Jeep Wrangler that I bought off my brother in 2003. A Wrangler is a hell of a first car for a teenager, but there was a reason I could afford it. Neither my brother nor the previous owners had been kind. By the time I decided on a college 2 years later, the list of repairs needed was beyond what I was willing to put into it. Not to mention parking fees, I decided I wouldn't be taking it with me, but it was a sweet ride. 4 out of 5 speed out of a 91. And no one was ready to part with it, so my dad decided to park it on the side of the house for the time being. With the repairs not yet addressed, the Jeep was not getting driven, and a few months later we let the registration lapse. The very next day we received an ordinance violation notice from the township. One of our neighbors had taken note of our tag and was waiting for the day they could report it. We had one retired neighbor that we didn't get along with, didn't hate the guy, but he had a lot of petty complaints, so we were pretty sure it was him. Well, we were upset, but my dad was ready to move a car out of the garage and put the inoperable Jeep in its place to appease the neighbor and put us in compliance. That's when I took a closer look at the ordinance and realized it specified that unregistered vehicles are not to be parked next to the house uncovered. No specific type of cover required, just some cover. So we went out back and got our dirtiest tarp, slung it over the Jeep, and pinned it down with rocks. Our reasonably nice, if somewhat rusty, Jeep had been replaced by a mystery lamp covered with a dirty tarp, and that was compliant. We were more annoyed that he has called the township on us than anything else. After a few weeks of smug satisfaction, we did finally sell the Jeep. I don't live there anymore, but I don't think my parents have had a complaint since. Hopefully, that neighbor crosses the street and talks to them about problems now. Who is sleeping here? That is Disney. Sleeping in the drawer. I think that has really become one of her absolute favorite spots. Usually I put a huge water bottle there, so it's even smaller for her, and she likes it even more. But yeah, today I just put the small water bottle. Alright guys, I don't want to disturb Disney too much today, but thank you very much for watching. I will... By the way, I'm curious how much longer she can fit in there, because she's getting so big. Maybe the drawer is soon not enough anymore. Anyway, guys, I think someone will continue their nap, and I will continue with the next video. Thank you very much for watching, and I see you again tomorrow. And ripe stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel, but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously, and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.